The cameras were rolling, the lights were bright, and the tension in the room was so thick you could practically cut it with a knife. For years, fans watched the roller coaster romance between Rasheeda and Kirk, one of reality TV's most controversial couples. Their love story was filled with loyalty tests, explosive arguments, and betrayals that had viewers shouting at their screens. But what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. Because after everything Rasheeda endured, the cheating scandals, the broken promises, and the emotional chaos that played out in front of millions, it looks like she has finally reached her breaking point. And now, a shocking new chapter is unfolding. Sources close to the reality star claim Rasheeda has officially moved and not quietly either. In fact, insiders say she recently introduced a brand new man into her life, leaving fans stunned and Kirk completely blindsided. Yes, you heard that right. After years of standing by Kirk, despite his controversial mistakes, Rasheeda is reportedly done playing the loyal wife. And according to those who witnessed the moment, when she revealed her new boyfriend, the room went completely silent. Wait, is this really happening? One stunned friend reportedly whispered, because this wasn't just a casual introduction. No, this was Rasheeda stepping into her power. A shift in Rasheeda's energy. The woman who once stood firmly beside Kirk through every scandal suddenly seemed different, calmer, sharper, almost like someone who had finally reached the end of a very long road. For years, fans watched Rasheeda defend her marriage. Even when the headlines were brutal and the accusations louder than ever, she stayed composed. People remember the betrayal that nearly shattered everything. The moment Kirk's mistakes became public, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided. Friends questioned how much one person could forgive, but Rasheeda always had one response. Marriage isn't easy, she once said during a tense conversation with a friend. People see the mistakes, but they don't see the work. Still, something had changed recently. One evening inside Frost Bistro, the restaurant buzzing with its usual crowd, Rasheeda sat at a corner table with two close friends. The atmosphere was casual at first, filled with laughter and quiet conversations about business and family. Then one of her friends leaned forward. "Girl, I gotta ask you something," she said quietly. Rasheeda raised an eyebrow. "What's up? Are you really okay with Kirk after everything?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. For a moment, Rasheeda didn't answer. She simply stirred her drink slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she sighed. "I was okay for a long time," she admitted. Her friend tilted her head. Rasheeda finally looked up, and something in her eyes had shifted. "But people grow," she said softly. The conversation ended there, but the tone had already changed. Over the next few weeks, small signs started appearing. Rasheeda began spending more time focused on her businesses, her fashion line, and her circle of friends. The once constant appearances with Kirk started becoming less frequent. Fans noticed. Social media lit up with speculation. Why don't we see Kirk with Rasheeda anymore? Something feels different. Did they break up? Behind the scenes, the tension inside their marriage had been building for months. One night inside their home, the calm finally cracked. Kirk walked into the living room and immediately sensed the atmosphere was off. Rasheeda was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone, but she wasn't really looking at it. "You've been quiet lately," Kirk said. Rasheeda didn't look up. "I've just been thinking." Kirk sat down across from her. "Thinking about what?" She finally met his eyes. "Everything." The word echoed in the room. Kirk shifted uncomfortably. "You still stuck on the past?" Rasheeda let out a short laugh, but it wasn't amused. "The past?" she repeated. "Yeah," Kirk said defensively. "We worked through that." Rasheeda slowly put her phone down. "Did we?" The tension thickened instantly. Kirk frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Rasheeda said calmly, "sometimes people say they forgive something, but they never really get the chance to heal from it." Kirk leaned back, frustration creeping into his voice. "So now you saying you never forgave me?" Rasheeda looked exhausted. "I tried." Those two words hit harder than any argument. For a moment, Kirk didn't know what to say. "So what are you saying right now?" he asked. Rasheeda stood up slowly. "I'm saying I spent years being loyal to someone who didn't always respect that loyalty." Kirk's voice rose slightly. "That was years ago. And it still happened," she replied. The room fell silent. Outside, the night was quiet. Inside, years of unresolved emotions were finally rising to the surface. Kirk ran a hand through his hair. "So what? You just gonna throw everything away now?" Rasheeda shook her head. "No," she said calmly. "I'm choosing myself." Those words landed like thunder. For the first time, Kirk looked genuinely shaken. "What does that even mean?" Rasheeda grabbed her purse from the table. "It means I'm done pretending everything is fine." She started walking toward the door. "Where are you going?" Kirk asked. Rasheeda paused but didn't turn around. Out, Kirk scoffed. Out where? She finally glanced over her shoulder. Somewhere peaceful. The door closed behind her. That night became the moment insiders later described as the turning point. Because from that moment forward, Rasheeda began moving differently. Stronger, more independent. And what nobody knew at the time was that someone new had already quietly entered the picture. It started with a chance meeting at an industry event in Atlanta. Rasheeda had almost skipped the event altogether. After the emotional tension at home, she wasn't exactly in the mood for networking or cameras. But her friend insisted. Come on, her friend said while adjusting Rasheeda's jacket. You need a night out. The venue was packed with music executives, influencers, and familiar faces from the entertainment scene. Lights flashed as photographers captured arrivals. Rasheeda walked in gracefully, smiling politely while greeting people she knew. Then it happened. Across the room, a tall man standing near the bar glanced in her direction. Their eyes met for only a second, but sometimes a single second changes everything. He looked away at first, almost like he didn't want to stare. Rasheeda continued talking to a group of friends, but a few minutes later, the same man approached. Excuse me, he said politely. Rasheeda turned. His voice was calm and confident. I just wanted to say it's nice to finally meet you. Rasheeda studied him for a moment. Have we met before? He smiled slightly. Not officially. Her friend beside her leaned closer, whispering, Girl, he's cute. Rasheeda tried not to laugh. And you are? She asked. The man extended his hand. My name's Marcus. Rasheeda shook his hand. Rasheeda. Marcus chuckled softly. Yeah, I know. The conversation that followed was surprisingly easy. No pressure, no awkwardness, no tension. For the first time in a long time, Rasheeda felt something simple. Peace. They talked about business, music, Atlanta culture, and even their favorite restaurants. At one point, Marcus said something that made Rasheeda pause. You seem like someone who carries a lot, he said. She raised an eyebrow. That obvious? He nodded. But you also seem strong enough to put it down when you're ready. Rasheeda looked at him carefully, because those words felt different, almost like he understood something nobody else had said out loud. That night ended with a simple goodbye. No dramatic moment, no promises, just a quiet connection. But over the next few weeks, Marcus and Rasheeda kept running into each other. First, at another event, then at a mutual friend's dinner, then again at Frost Bistro. And each time the conversations grew longer, deeper. One evening while they sat outside the restaurant after closing hours, Marcus finally asked a question that changed everything. Can I be honest with you? Rasheeda looked curious. Always. Marcus leaned forward slightly. I know your situation isn't simple. Rasheeda sighed. That's an understatement. He nodded. But I also know you deserve to be happy. Rasheeda didn't respond immediately, because the truth was, she had started wondering the same thing herself. The silence between them stretched for a few seconds, but it didn't feel uncomfortable. Rasheeda simply stared out at the quiet street, while Marcus waited patiently beside her. Finally she spoke. People say that a lot. Marcus waited patiently beside her. Finally she spoke. People say that a lot. She said softly. You deserve happiness. Marcus tilted his head. And you don't believe it. Rasheeda gave a small shrug. I believe happiness takes work. She replied. And sometimes the work turns into survival. Marcus didn't interrupt. He just listened. And that alone was something Rasheeda hadn't experienced in a very long time. For years, she continued slowly. I kept telling myself things would get better. That loyalty meant staying even when it hurt. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. But, Rasheeda looked at him. But loyalty shouldn't feel like a prison. Those words hung in the air. Marcus leaned back slightly. Sounds like you already know what you need to do. Rasheeda sighed. Knowing and doing are two different things. That conversation ended quietly. But something had shifted again. Over the next few weeks, Rasheeda and Marcus kept talking. Sometimes it was a quick conversation after an event. Sometimes a late-night phone call that lasted hours. They never rushed anything. In fact, Marcus seemed careful not to pressure her. One night during a phone call, Rasheeda noticed it. You're being very cautious with me, she said. Marcus laughed lightly. That obvious, very, well, he said, I'm not trying to become another problem in your life. Rasheeda smiled to herself. You're not, good, Marcus replied, because the last thing you need is more chaos. Meanwhile, inside the Frost household, Kirk had started noticing changes he couldn't ignore anymore. Rasheeda was home less often. When she was home, she seemed emotionally distant, and the arguments had stopped, which somehow felt worse. One evening Kirk confronted her again in the kitchen. You've been moving funny lately, he said. Rasheeda didn't react. She simply continued, pouring a glass of water. Moving funny how? Kirk crossed his arms. Like you checked out. Rasheeda took a slow sip before answering, maybe I'm just tired. Kirk shook his head. No, this ain't just tired. His eyes narrowed slightly. There's somebody else. The question landed hard. Rasheeda placed the glass on the counter. Why would you jump to that? Kirk let out a short laugh. Because that's what people do when they start acting different. Rasheeda stared at him calmly. Interesting. Kirk frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Rasheeda's voice stayed steady. Nothing. Just ironic. Kirk's expression darkened. You trying to throw the past back in my face again? You asked a question, she replied. I answered honestly. The tension rose quickly. So you telling me there's nobody else? Kirk pressed. Rasheeda paused. Not because she was hiding something, but because the answer was more complicated than he realized. I'm telling you, she said slowly, that I'm figuring out what my life looks like right now. Kirk shook his head in disbelief. That sounds like a yes. Rasheeda grabbed her keys from the counter. Believe whatever helps you sleep at night. She walked past him. Where you going now? Kirk asked sharply. Out, she replied. The door closed behind her again. Kirk stood there alone in the kitchen, anger building in his chest, because for the first time in years, he felt like he was losing control of the situation, and the more he thought about it, the more the suspicion grew. A few days later, things escalated. Kirk was meeting a friend at a lounge downtown when something unexpected caught his attention. Across the room, near the patio doors, he saw a familiar figure, Rasheeda. She was laughing, and sitting across from her was a man Kirk had never seen before. Kirk froze. His friend followed his gaze. Yo, ain't that your wife? Kirk's jaw tightened. Yeah. The two of them watched quietly for a moment. Rasheeda looked relaxed, happy even. The man across from her leaned forward, saying something that made her laugh again. Kirk's friend whistled. Man, that don't look like no business meeting. Kirk's fists clenched. Without thinking, he started walking toward them. His friend grabbed his arm. Hold up, bro. You sure you want to do that? But Kirk was already halfway across the room. Rasheeda noticed him first. Her smile faded slightly. Marcus turned and immediately sensed the tension. Kirk stopped beside their table. Well, he said coldly. What we got going on here? Rasheeda sighed quietly. Kirk. Marcus remained calm. You must be Kirk, he said politely. Kirk looked him up and down. And you must be the reason my wife been acting different. The surrounding tables began noticing the tension. Rasheeda spoke firmly. This is not the place for this. Kirk ignored her. How long this been going on? He demanded. Marcus leaned back calmly. Nothing inappropriate is going on. Kirk scoffed. Right? Rasheeda stood up. Kirk, stop. But Kirk's frustration was boiling over. Nah, I want to hear this, he said. Who is this guy? Marcus answered calmly. My name is Marcus. Kirk shook his head. Marcus. Then he looked back at Rasheeda. So this who you been running around with? Rasheeda's patience snapped slightly. First of all, she said sharply, I'm not running around with anybody. Kirk laughed bitterly. Really? Marcus spoke again, keeping his voice even. Look man, I'm not here to disrespect anyone. Kirk glared at him. Too late for that. Rasheeda stepped between them. Both of you, stop. The tension was now thick enough that people nearby had pulled out their phones. Fans watching the scene whispered, is that Rasheeda and Kirk? Oh, this about to be messy? Rasheeda turned to Kirk. You don't get to interrogate me like this. Kirk shook his head. So you admit it. I admit, she said firmly, that I'm allowed to talk to people. Kirk stared at Marcus again. You know she married, right? Marcus didn't flinch. I'm aware. And that don't bother you. Marcus answered calmly. What bothers me is seeing someone disrespected. The words hit like a spark in gasoline. Kirk stepped forward. What you trying to say? Rasheeda quickly raised her hand. Kirk don't. But Kirk's pride had already taken over. You think you know our marriage, he snapped. Marcus remained composed. No, he said, but I know what respect looks like. Rasheeda closed her eyes briefly, because she knew exactly where this argument was headed. Finally, she spoke loudly enough to cut through the tension. That's enough. Both men looked at her. Rasheeda's voice was calm but firm. I'm leaving. She grabbed her purse. Marcus stood up. I'll walk you out. Kirk laughed sarcastically. Of course you will. Rasheeda turned toward Kirk one last time. This right here, she said quietly, is exactly why I've been needing space. Then she walked toward the exit. Marcus followed. Outside, the night air felt cooler. Rasheeda exhaled slowly. I'm sorry about that. Marcus shook his head. You don't owe me an apology. Rasheeda looked back toward the building. He's angry. Marcus nodded. He's scared. She raised an eyebrow. Scared. Yeah, Marcus said. Because he realizes you're not the same woman he used to control. Rasheeda didn't respond. But deep down she knew he might be right. Over the next few days, the confrontation spread quickly across social media. Fans were shocked. Videos from the lounge began circulating online. People debated what they had seen. Did Rasheeda just introduce a new man? Kirk looked furious. This marriage might actually be over. Inside the Frost household, the atmosphere had become icy. One night Kirk confronted her again. So you just gonna embarrass me like that in public? Rasheeda looked up from the couch. You embarrassed yourself. Kirk scoffed. Oh, so now it's my fault. You walked into a situation angry and made it worse. Kirk paced across the room. Because you sitting there with another man. Rasheeda stood up slowly. I was having a conversation with some dude who thinks he can lecture me about respect. Rasheeda's voice sharpened. Maybe you should listen. Kirk stopped pacing. You really defending him right now? Rasheeda looked directly at him. I'm defending myself. The silence that followed felt heavy. Kirk finally asked the question he had been avoiding. Do you love him? Rasheeda blinked in surprise. What do you love him? Kirk repeated. Rasheeda shook her head slowly. This isn't about that. Then what is it about? She took a deep breath. It's about realizing I deserve peace. Kirk laughed bitterly. So now, I'm the villain. Rasheeda looked tired. No, Kirk. She paused. You're just the chapter that taught me something. Those words cut deeper than any insult. Because for the first time, Kirk realized he might actually lose her. Meanwhile, Marcus kept his distance after the confrontation. He didn't call for several days. Rasheeda eventually reached out. You disappeared, she said when he answered. Marcus chuckled. I figured you needed space. Maybe, she admitted, but I also didn't want things to end like that. Marcus's voice softened. They don't have to. A few nights later, they met again for dinner. This time, somewhere quiet. No cameras. No crowds. Just a small table by the window. Halfway through the meal, Marcus looked at her seriously. Can I ask you something? Rasheeda nodded. Sure. What do you really want now? She thought about the question carefully, because for years, the answer had always been the same. Save the marriage. Protect the family. Hold everything together. But now, the answer felt different. Rasheeda looked up at him. I want honesty, she said. Marcus nodded. Anything else? Rasheeda smiled slightly. Maybe a little happiness too. Marcus returned the smile. That sounds fair. But what neither of them realized in that moment was that someone across the restaurant had already recognized Rasheeda, and by the next morning, the photos would be everywhere. Was that someone across the restaurant had already recognized Rasheeda, and by the next morning, the photos would be everywhere. Blogs, fan pages, entertainment accounts, and gossip forums all posted the same images. Rasheeda sitting across from Marcus at the quiet restaurant, smiling in a way fans hadn't seen in years. The captions were ruthless. Rasheeda spotted with mystery man again. Kirk. Frost reacts to shocking dinner date. Is this the end of their marriage? Fans were shocked. The comments exploded within minutes. Some people were supportive. After everything Kirk did, she deserves happiness. Others were furious. She stayed all those years and now suddenly she moves on. But the loudest reactions came from fans who had followed the relationship from the beginning. This marriage has been broken for a long time. Inside the Frost household, the atmosphere turned even colder. Kirk was sitting at the kitchen island scrolling through his phone when he saw the headlines. His jaw tightened. Unbelievable, he muttered. A few minutes later Rasheeda walked in. She immediately sensed the tension. Kirk slowly turned the phone toward her. You want to explain this? Rasheeda glanced at the screen. The photos. The captions. The comments. She didn't even look surprised. People with cameras saw us eating dinner, she said calmly. Kirk laughed bitterly. That's what you call it. Rasheeda poured herself coffee. What do you call it? Kirk slammed the phone on the counter. I call it disrespect. Rasheeda took a sip before answering. That's interesting coming from you. Kirk's eyes narrowed. You keep throwing that in my face. Because you keep acting like you forgot. The tension climbed again. Kirk shook his head. So this guy is just a friend? Rasheeda set the cup down slowly. Right now, he's someone who treats me with respect. Kirk scoffed. Right now? She looked directly at him. Don't push me. Kirk leaned forward. Or what? Rasheeda's voice stayed calm. Or you're going to hear answers you might not like. The silence that followed was heavy, because Kirk realized she wasn't bluffing. Later that afternoon, the drama spilled into their circle of friends. Carly Red was one of the first to call Rasheeda. Girl, what is going on? She asked. Rasheeda sighed. You saw the internet already. Of course I did. Everybody saw it. Carly lowered her voice slightly. So tell me the truth. Who is he? Rasheeda hesitated for a second. His name is Marcus. Marcus what? Rasheeda laughed softly. Just Marcus. Carly sounded curious. And how serious is this? Rasheeda looked out the window while thinking. I don't know yet. But you like him. Rasheeda didn't deny it. He's different. Carly hummed thoughtfully. Different can be dangerous. Rasheeda chuckled. So can staying stuck. Meanwhile, Kirk was venting to his own friends. Inside a lounge, later that night, he slammed a glass onto the table. She got me looking crazy out here. His friend shrugged. Man, the internet been calling your marriage messy for years. Kirk rubbed his forehead. This different though. Why? Because now, she acting like she done. His friend leaned back. Maybe she is. Kirk looked up sharply. What that supposed to mean? His friend spoke carefully. You know you put her through a lot. Kirk frowned. So everybody just gonna take her side now? Not saying that. The friend replied. I'm just saying she might finally be tired. Kirk leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, because for the first time, he started wondering if that might actually be true. 2 days later, things reached another level. Rasheeda had organized a small private gathering at Frost Bistro. Nothing big, just close friends, a few business partners, and some familiar faces from the Atlanta scene. The atmosphere was lively. Music played softly while people talked and laughed. But the real tension started the moment Marcus walked in. Some guests immediately recognized him from the viral photos. Whispers started spreading. That's the guy. That's the one she was with. Rasheeda noticed the attention but stayed calm. She walked over and greeted him with a warm smile. You made it? Marcus nodded. You invited me? Carly, red, standing nearby, leaned toward another friend. Oh, this about to be messy tonight. Marcus greeted a few people politely while Rasheeda introduced him around. But the room's energy changed completely about 20 minutes later, because the front door suddenly opened, and Kirk walked in. The conversations immediately quieted. Some guests exchanged nervous glances. Oh no, Carly whispered. Here we go. Kirk scanned the room slowly. His eyes landed on Rasheeda first, then Marcus standing beside her. The tension became instant. Rasheeda sighed quietly. I knew this might happen. Marcus kept his voice calm. You want me to leave? She shook her head. No. Kirk approached slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. Finally he stopped a few feet away from them. Nice party, he said sarcastically. Rasheeda crossed her arms. You weren't invited. Kirk shrugged. Still my restaurant. A few guests awkwardly stepped away to give them space. Marcus stood quietly beside Rasheeda but didn't speak yet. Kirk glanced at him. You again. Marcus remained calm. Good evening. Kirk laughed. You really comfortable showing up here? Rasheeda stepped forward slightly. I invited him. Kirk looked at her. Oh, I know. The tension kept rising. Carly whispered to a friend. Emotions about to run high. Kirk looked back at Marcus. So tell me something, he said coldly. You enjoying the attention? Marcus replied calmly. I'm here because she asked me to be. Kirk scoffed. You moving fast? Rasheeda interrupted. Nobody's moving fast. Kirk raised an eyebrow. Internet says different. Rasheeda's patience was fading. The internet also said you had a whole secret child. The room went silent. A few people gasped. Kirk's face hardened. You really going there right now? Rasheeda shrugged. Just reminding you how rumors work. Marcus finally spoke again. This conversation isn't productive. Kirk stepped closer. I wasn't talking to you. Marcus didn't back down. You don't have to. Rasheeda raised her hand. Both of you stop. The energy in the room was thick. Fans watching online streams of the event started posting live reactions. This is crazy. They arguing in the restaurant. The family is left divided. Kirk shook his head slowly. I can't believe this. Rasheeda looked at him calmly. Believe what? That you would disrespect our marriage like this. Rasheeda's expression changed slightly. Our marriage has been through worse than dinner. Kirk didn't answer immediately, because deep down he knew she was right. Finally, he spoke again. So what now? Rasheeda looked him directly in the eyes. Now I live my life. Kirk exhaled slowly. With him? The room held its breath. Rasheeda glanced at Marcus, then back at Kirk. With peace. Kirk shook his head. You really done? Rasheeda didn't respond, because the answer was already clear. The silence stretched until Marcus spoke quietly. Maybe everyone just needs time. Kirk laughed bitterly. Oh, you definitely got time now. He looked around the room. Enjoy the party. Then he turned and walked out. The moment the door closed, the room exploded with whispers. That was intense. Fans are going to lose their minds when this hits the internet. Carly walked over to Rasheeda. Girl, are you okay? Rasheeda exhaled slowly. I think so. Marcus looked at her carefully. That couldn't have been easy. She shook her head. It wasn't. But there was something else in her eyes now. Relief. Because for the first time in years, she had finally stood her ground. Later that night, after most of the guests left, Rasheeda and Marcus sat outside the restaurant. The city lights reflected across the empty street. That was a lot, Marcus said. Rasheeda nodded. Yeah. He looked at her. You sure you're ready for what comes next? Rasheeda leaned back in her chair. Honestly, yeah. She smiled faintly. I've been ready for a long time. Marcus studied her face for a moment. Then there's something I want to say. Rasheeda raised an eyebrow. What? Marcus took a breath. I didn't come into your life expecting any of this. She nodded. I know. But now that I'm here, he paused. I care about you. Rasheeda didn't speak right away, because hearing those words felt both comforting and terrifying at the same time. Marcus, she said softly. You don't have to say anything, he added quickly. I just wanted you to know. Rasheeda looked at him carefully. I appreciate that. The moment felt quiet, honest, real, but neither of them realized someone across the street had been watching the entire conversation. A paparazzi photographer quietly lowered his camera, because he had just captured the photo that would send the internet into another frenzy. Rasheeda sitting beside Marcus, their hands briefly touching, and the caption that would appear everywhere the next morning. Rasheeda moves on at last, introducing her new boyfriend after Kirk's betrayal. And once those photos hit the internet, the drama surrounding their story was about to reach a level nobody was prepared for. The next morning the internet exploded in a way nobody expected. The new photos spread faster than any rumor before them. Rasheeda and Marcus sitting outside Frost Bistro, their hands briefly touching while they talked under the streetlights. The caption attached to the image was simple but powerful. Rasheeda moves on at last, introducing her new boyfriend after Kirk's betrayal. Within minutes, fans flooded every platform. Wait, is this official now? Did she just hard launch a new man? Kirk must be furious. Some fans celebrated her. After everything she went through, she deserves happiness. Others were skeptical. This looks messy. But one thing was clear. After everything she went through, she deserves happiness. Others were skeptical. This looks messy. But one thing was clear. Everyone was watching. Inside the Frost house, Kirk saw the photo the same way millions of fans did. His phone buzzed non-stop with messages. Friends, family, even people he hadn't heard from in years. One message read simply, bro, you good? Kirk stared at the screen for a long time. The photo bothered him more than he wanted to admit, because Rasheeda looked different, lighter, happier, and that realization hit harder than any insult. Later that afternoon, Kirk called her. Rasheeda answered after a few rings. Hello. Kirk's voice was calm, but tense. So this is what we doing now? Rasheeda sighed. Kirk, nah, just answer the question. He said. Is that your boyfriend now? Rasheeda paused. I'm getting to know someone. Kirk let out a sharp laugh. Getting to know someone while you still married. Rasheeda's tone hardened. You lost the right to judge how I heal. The silence on the phone stretched. Finally, Kirk said quietly, you're really done with me. Rasheeda closed her eyes briefly. I think we've both known this was coming. Kirk didn't respond. After a moment, the call ended. Meanwhile, Marcus was dealing with his own sudden spotlight. His phone buzzed with notifications all morning. Friends sending screenshots. People asking questions. He finally called Rasheeda. Looks like the whole world knows about us now, he said. Rasheeda laughed softly. Welcome to reality TV chaos. Marcus chuckled. I'm starting to understand what you meant. But his voice turned serious. You okay though? I'm fine, she replied. Honestly, it feels like a weight lifted. Marcus paused. That's good. She could hear the sincerity in his voice. Thank you for being patient through all this, she added. Marcus smiled on the other end of the call. Some things are worth the wait. That evening, Rasheeda met with a few close friends at a lounge in Atlanta. Carly Red slid into the booth beside her with a dramatic grin. Okay, Miss New Relationship Energy. Rasheeda laughed. Stop. Another friend leaned forward. No, seriously though. How serious is this guy? Rasheeda thought about it. He's kind. Carly nodded approvingly. Kind is good, another friend added, and he stood his ground with Kirk the other night. That's rare. Rasheeda smiled slightly. He's not intimidated. Carly raised her drink. Two new beginnings then. Glasses clinked together. But not everyone in their circle felt comfortable with the situation. Later that week, Rasheeda met with her mother. The older woman sat across from her with a thoughtful expression. Baby, I saw those pictures online. Rasheeda sighed. Of course you did. Her mother leaned forward. I just want to make sure you're thinking clearly. Rasheeda nodded. I am. Because moving on publicly can get complicated. Rasheeda reached for her mother's hand. Mom, I spent years trying to save something that was already broken. Her mother studied her face carefully. And this new man. Rasheeda smiled softly. He treats me with respect. Her mother nodded slowly. That's important. Then she added quietly, just protect your heart. Rasheeda promised she would. Meanwhile, Kirk was struggling with his own emotions. Inside the restaurant one afternoon he sat with a few business partners but barely paid attention to the conversation. His friend finally noticed. "You still thinking about Rasheeda?" Kirk sighed. Hard not to when the whole internet talking about it. His friend shrugged. "Man, you had years to fix things." Kirk rubbed his face. "I know." The friend leaned back. "So what you gonna do now?" Kirk stared at the table. "I don't know." That answer surprised even him, because for years he always believed Rasheeda would stay no matter what. But now, that certainty was gone, and the feeling of losing her was starting to sink in. Meanwhile, Rasheeda and Marcus continued seeing each other quietly despite the growing attention. One evening they walked through Piedmont Park together as the sun set over Atlanta. The city skyline glowed in the distance. "This is nice," Rasheeda said. Marcus nodded. "Peaceful." They sat on a bench, watching people walk their dogs and jog along the paths. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Marcus asked, "Do you ever miss it?" Rasheeda looked at him. "Miss what? Your marriage." The question wasn't judgmental, just honest. Rasheeda thought carefully before answering. "I miss what I thought it was," she said. Marcus nodded. "That makes sense." She turned toward him. "But I don't miss feeling invisible." Marcus reached for her hand gently. "You're not invisible to me?" Rasheeda felt warmth spread through her chest. Because after years of tension and heartbreak, simple moments like this felt incredibly meaningful. But peace never lasts long in the world of reality TV. 2 days later, another twist hit the internet. A blogger posted a new headline that immediately started trending. Kirk Frost reportedly planning to fight for his marriage. Fans were shocked again. Some people supported the idea. Maybe it's not too late. Others rolled their eyes. He should have thought about that before. Rasheeda saw the headline while scrolling through her phone. Carly called her immediately. "Girl, have you seen this?" Rasheeda sighed. "Yep." "What you think he means by fight for the marriage?" Rasheeda shook her head. "I have no idea." But that question would be answered sooner than anyone expected, because later that evening Kirk showed up at Frost Bistro again. This time Rasheeda was there with Marcus reviewing business paperwork at one of the tables. Kirk walked straight toward them. The tension returned instantly. Marcus noticed him first. "Looks like we've got company," he said quietly. Rasheeda turned. Her expression hardened slightly. Kirk stood there for a moment before speaking. "We need to talk." Rasheeda crossed her arms. "About what?" Kirk glanced briefly at Marcus. "Privately?" Marcus started to stand up, but Rasheeda touched his arm. "You can stay." Kirk frowned. "This is between me and my wife," Rasheeda responded calmly. "You lost the right to control the room." The tension thickened. Kirk took a breath. "Fine." He looked directly at her. "I don't want to lose our marriage." Rasheeda blinked in surprise. Marcus stayed silent. Kirk continued, "I know I made mistakes." Rasheeda laughed softly. "That's an understatement." Kirk nodded. "Yeah, it is." The room felt heavy with emotion. "But I'm willing to fix things," he said. Rasheeda studied his face carefully, because for the first time in years he actually sounded sincere. But something inside her had already changed. "Kirk," she said gently, "sometimes fixing something means letting it go." Kirk's shoulders dropped slightly. "So that's it?" Rasheeda glanced at Marcus, then back at him. "I'm choosing happiness." Kirk's eyes flickered with pain. "With him," Rasheeda answered honestly. "With peace." The silence that followed said everything. Finally, Kirk nodded slowly. "I guess that's my answer." He turned to leave, but before walking out he stopped and looked back once more. "Take care of her," he said quietly to Marcus. Marcus nodded. "I will." Kirk left the restaurant without another word. Rasheeda watched the door close behind him. A mix of emotions ran through her chest. Relief, sadness, closure. Marcus gently squeezed, stepping into a brand new chapter of her life. The woman who once stood firmly beside Kirk through every scandal is now choosing something different. Choosing peace, respect, and possibly a new kind of love. Fans are still shocked by how quickly everything unfolded. One moment the internet was debating whether Rasheeda would ever leave the marriage. And the next moment she was seen smiling beside a new man who seems determined to treat her differently. Emotions ran high. The family was left divided, and the tension between Kirk and Marcus had everyone talking. But the biggest question still remains. Is this truly the end of Rasheeda and Kirk's long and complicated love story? Or could another dramatic twist still be waiting around the corner? Reality TV history has shown that nothing is ever as simple as it seems, and when emotions are involved, anything can happen. Some fans believe Rasheeda finally found the happiness she deserves after years of standing by Kirk. Others think the situation is far from over, and that Kirk might not be ready to let go just yet. One thing is certain though. The drama surrounding this story has everyone watching closely. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Rasheeda did the right thing by moving on after Kirk's betrayal? Or Or should she have given their marriage one more chance? And what do you think about her new relationship with Marcus? Is this real love or just the beginning of another dramatic chapter? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because your opinion matters. And if you enjoyed this story and want more shocking celebrity drama, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next explosive update. Trust us, the next story might be even crazier. You never miss the next explosive update. Trust us, the next story might be even crazier.